Hello and welcome back to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. It is my pleasure, as your producer Jeremiah Long, to be joining you to talk about Georgia versus Alabama in the national championship with our host, Mr. Logan Landers. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, Jeremiah? First show of 2022, and we are kicking things off with a bang. The national championship game between the Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide, a rematch of the SEC championship we saw a couple of months ago, and I can't wait to see how these two are going to battle out once more.
That's absolutely right. And for everybody joining us in the new year, thank you so much. 2021 was absolutely record breaking, life changing, earth shattering in so many ways for us. We grew by leaps and bounds, and it is all absolutely 100% because of you. So thank you so much for watching us on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and for listening to our podcast every single day. So appreciate it so much. Welcome to 2022 and Mr. Logan Landers. We're based here in Georgia. We're based here in Atlanta. We know about these dogs. So tell us, what do the Georgia Bulldogs fans and the Alabama Crimson Tide fans have to look forward to for this amazing national championship coming up on January 10th in Indianapolis?
It's going to be a great game, man, because Georgia is out for revenge. We all know they lost the SEC championship game against Alabama 41-24, a big upset because Georgia was ranked the number one team in the country at the time. Everyone thought that they were going to put up a better fight, but man, it's Alabama. What more can you say? They were ready, they were prepared, they had all of their troops ready on the front line, and they just stuck at the Georgia, man. They did anything in their willpower to get that win. Bryce Young threw for over 400 yards, and they were just doing anything they wanted to. So after it's been a few more games have been played, now we're going at it for the biggest prize in college football with the national championship. And this is the game that everyone kind of envisioned, right? It was nice that, Michigan and Cincinnati were involved, but everyone was deep down really rooting for a rematch between these two SEC powerhouses. And let's talk about how these two teams got here. I'm going to talk about Cincinnati and Alabama first. They played last week in the Cotton Bowl. Alabama got to win that one 27-6, so they put up a good fight. Bryce Young had a good day, 17-28 passing, 181 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. But the real key was Brian Robinson Jr., the running back, ran for 204 yards on the day with 26 carries. Also, Trey Sanders helped out with the load also with 14 carries for 67 yards. As a team, they ran for over 300 yards with close to 50 carries. So that is a big key to their victory. Cincinnati just could not stop the run. And whenever Bryce Young was throwing the ball around, he was getting it to his receivers, and they were putting in good work. Ja'Cory Brooks had 4 catches for 66 yards. Jameson Williams had a big day, 7 catches for 62 yards. Slade Bolden had a touchdown on 3 catches. And also Cameron Littau had a touchdown on the day. So they were doing good. In terms of the defense, they only gave up 6 points. So they were putting in a lot of good work. Didn't give up any touchdowns. Brian Branch led the team with 8 tackles. They had 6 sacks on the day, which is pretty amazing. Will Anderson Jr. had 2 of them, and then there's a bunch of other guys on that Alabama defense that were just able to get to Desmond Ridder and just make him uncomfortable. He only had 17-32 passing, 144 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So he just was not able to get anything going in the pocket for the Cincinnati Bearcats. And for the rushing game, Jerome Ford didn't do a whole lot either. 15 carries for 77 yards, so not much doing there either. And they just Cincinnati was really just never able to get things going. And Alabama was doing what Alabama normally does, getting sacks, getting passes defended, making sure the offense is clicking, and just really doing a good job and doing what everyone thought they should do, and that was beat Cincinnati and beat them by a pretty good bit. I know the score wasn't astronomical or nothing, but they went in there, they took care of business, they didn't allow a touchdown, and they are moving on to the national championship. As for Georgia, they had a little bit of a tougher matchup, people might think, against the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan had a tremendous defense. They have a lot of guys on that defensive line in that secondary who are going to be going to the NFL in a few months now. But it don't matter because Georgia went in there and beat the brakes off of them 34-11. A game I wanted to be a little bit closer personally, but it is what it is. That's how college football goes. You can never really predict how each game is going to go each week. But man, Georgia did a tremendous job. Of course, Stetson Bennett had a great day, 20 of 30, over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, kept it clean. So, and also Kenny McIntosh threw his hat in there as well, had a touchdown on a bit of a trick play. So that was always nice to see. But man, you hope that Stetson can rewrite history because he did not have a great game against Alabama in the SEC championship game. But after seeing what he did against Michigan, you got to hope that he's got more confidence now. He's looked back at that game footage 1,000 times, I'm sure, and he knows what to expect. But let's see who else did some good work. As for Georgia, the rushing game, there wasn't really one guy who stood out, but as a team collectively, they ran the ball for close to 200 yards on 35 carries, so they were able to get something going there. Receiving core, James Cook, 4 catches, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. Jermaine Burton had a long catch for 57 yards, his only catch of the day for 1 score. Brock Bowers, the tight end that everyone's been talking about, 5 catches, 55 yards, and a score. And also, Adonai Mitchell was able to get on the fun as well, and he got a touchdown on the day with 2 catches and 34 yards for receiving for that young man. The defense, we talked about they needed to stop Hassan Haskins, the most dominant running back in recent weeks. And, man, they were able to stuff him. Haskins only had 9 carries for 39 yards. As a team, Michigan ran the ball 27 times for 91 yards. So, man, they just were not able to get much going there. Like I said, Haskins ran for 39. J.J. McCarthy ran for 24. Donovan Edwards ran for 16. So they just were not able to get much going. And Haskins, who's been a tremendous runner this year, only had an average carry of 4.3, which is not great considering what he's been doing as of late. The Michigan passing attack, Cade McNamara, 11 of 19. Also, J.J. McCarthy was in there, 7 of 17. Altogether, threw for 237 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. So not the greatest day, but like I mentioned in the preview for that game, the passing game wasn't really the forte for the Wolverines. And I know it wasn't that much greater for Georgia, but I trusted Stetson Bennett a little bit more than I did for McNamara and also McCarthy. For the receiving core, Eric All kind of led the way for Michigan. And there wasn't too much going on there. Like I said, the defense for Georgia was just too tough. And, of course, you got to talk about the amazing defense with Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, Darian Kendrick, Lewis. The list goes on and on with guys who are going to get drafted in a few months, man. This Georgia team is going to look completely different because they have so much star potential. And we're going to see just how many of these Georgia Bulldog defenders are going to declare for the NFL draft here in the next few weeks. It's going to be interesting. I think the MVP was Darian Kendrick for the game. Had 2 interceptions, really helped kind of swing the momentum. Like I said, the defense did their job. They got 4 sacks as a team. They were able to get a few passes defended, a couple of tackles for losses, and they were just dominant. They stopped the run. They stopped the pass. Michigan could not get anything going. They were shut out in 2 separate quarters. In the first quarter and the third quarter, they didn't score any. Only had 3 points at halftime. So Georgia was just dominant as they could be. And it was kind of a masterclass, right? We talked about how Georgia is the dominant factor. And man, it's gonna be a great game against Georgia, against Alabama. I can't wait to see how it's gonna unfold. But it's gonna be interesting because you have, like I mentioned, the top-notch defense here for Georgia, the amazing Alabama offense led by the Heisman winner and Bryce Young. Also, the dominant running game for Alabama. I told you what Brian Robinson did, ran for over 200 yards. So, like I mentioned with the Georgia and Michigan game, if Georgia can stop the run, it's only going to lead to a one-dimensional type of game. But it's different, though, because you're not going up against McNamara and McCarthy. You're going up against the Heisman winner. You're going up against the number 1 guy in college football with Bryce Young, who's able to throw for over 400 yards against this team the last time they met. So I think all in all, if Georgia is going to go out there and play their hearts out on defense, I'm going to need Stetson Bennett to have a much better game than he did in their previous meeting. I think he's learned from this. I think that he's more prepared. He got punched in the mouth last time, right? He got sacked a good bit. He just wasn't able to have a good game. But after playing a few more games, after getting back to this game and knowing that it's the biggest game of his life, that I think the Bulldogs are ready. I think Alabama is prepped. They had good games last week. They beat their opponents by a good amount. And with Coach Saban and Kirby Smart going at it one more time, that's why we all say, man, the SEC is the top of the college football world. I know, the Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, all those are tremendous. But everyone, especially us in the South, we all know that the SEC is king when it comes to talent. And here we are one more time going at it for the national championship. So for my final score, I want this one to be a close game. So I'm going to go with Georgia getting the win in this one. We got to go with the dogs, baby. I'm going to go Georgia with a score of 30, and I'm going to go with Alabama 23, only a 7-point ball game. I want this one to be a close game. I think Georgia might pull something out in the end, maybe get a late interception or a fumble. We'll see. But I just have a little bit more faith in Georgia after seeing how dominantly they handled Michigan and that amazing running game and their offense. I got just a little bit more faith in them right now. And you got to go for Georgia, man. We got to hope they can pull it on out. They were dominant the whole season. You got to want them to be the number one team in college football. And like we were saying, man, if Georgia pulls out, that's great. They beat Goliath. But if Alabama, man, if Bama pulls it out, it's just another trophy for Nick Saban. He can just shine it up and put it right next to the other 30 or whatever that he owns at this point. So I think it's going to be a great game, but I got the dogs winning in a close fight.
And I sure hope you are right. And I think that you are, because guess what? It's Georgia. It's Georgia football. We've been out here. We've been really killing it, pushing it. Let's see what Donald L. Hall is talking about here. He says, I'm really tired of beating up on Georgia, starting to feel like an abusive daddy. Roll Tide. Fair enough. We've also got Justin Walker, who felt Bama wins 35-27. That's definitely, a good score. They say he also said they have the best quarterback, best defensive player, and the best coach. I can't argue that they do have one of the most renowned coaches in the history of all football. I mean, you just got to
college, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, as I look at the, where things stand with this, of course, us being in Georgia and watching, Georgia closely this entire year, seeing the amazing things they have done and how they've been able to shut down some teams that, should have really been able to come at them. I do definitely want to see 4 quarters of amazing football between these two teams. Alabama is a dominant force. They have so many years of recruiting behind them that it just builds up this giant wall, and everyone knows that. But at the same time, I don't think we've got one underdog and one definite winner coming into this. I think we've got 2 teams that are going to come in here and play 4 quarters of football, and it is going to be a joy to watch. And I just want to see them really go hard on both sides of this. We've got D-Man 430 says, I think Georgia will show up in this game. They finally pull it off. I think you are absolutely right. Now, I'll tell you this. If you need the underdog story for Georgia to get you hyped, to beat Alabama, I'm here for it. Because as a person who grew up, mostly in the Knoxville area, around the University of Tennessee Vols, Hot Like 98, I was there for all that. I've seen what happens when you have a great team, and then what happens when you are just thought of as the underdog perpetually. So with these 2 teams, I think that they're going to come in there. They're going to have some tricks up their sleeve, most certainly. But, and I think, Logan, I'll let you speak to this too just a little more before we head out. Like, I feel like these are 2 teams that play fundamental football and just they're just solid. They don't have to use a whole lot of tricks. They don't have to use a whole lot of gimmicks, and they don't have to use a whole lot of hype. They can play strong football and just really just stand up to offenses to keep their personal offense off the field all dang day. And I think that they're going to put their offense personally back out there and just keep driving in. So what are your final thoughts on these teams and their fundamentals?
Yeah, like these are 2 really fundamentally sound teams. You're not going to see them making many careless mistakes, and that's just based on, one, the personnel that they have on both sides of the ball in offense and defense, and also the top-notch coaching with Coach Nick Saban, with Kirby Smart. They are just going to beat you over the head with fundamentals, making sure you don't make careless mistakes, don't throw the ball away on a snap, don't fumble the ball whenever the time is clutch. And like I said, it speaks to the coaching, speaks to the personnel. And you're getting 2 of, like you said, this isn't really an underdog story. It's like a 1A and a 1B, if I had to say anything, that it's really even because, like I said, these are the top 2 teams in college football. They've already battled once. Alabama got the nod in that one in a pretty big upset in terms of the score, at least. So now you have Georgia, who's upset. They're ready to come back in here, prove that was a fluke, and to show that, you might have got the SEC championship, which is nice and pretty, but we're coming for the whole enchilada. We're getting the national championship, and they're going to take it to Alabama, I think. Like I mentioned with Alabama, it's just another walk in the park if they get the win this one, man. Coach Saban adds another amazing accolade to his already storied resume. And we're going to see a bunch of these players on both sides of these teams, on offense, defense, even special teams, who are going to be drafted in the next few months, in the next few years. And it's going to be phenomenal to see what they're going to do in the National Football League. But man, for this game, I can't wait for it. We got about a week before it kicks off between two of the top teams in college football. I'm going to be ready. I'm going to get some nice food. I'm going to be prepped. I'm going to be waiting in my living room watching this game, sound all the way up, cheering for both of these teams. And I can't wait to see how this is going to shake out, man. It's going to be a tremendous game. But I just got Georgia edging it out just ever so slightly in the end. Because, come on, we had the Braves win the World Series last year in 2021. Let's start things off good with the Dogs win in 2022.
Absolutely. And no matter what, the SEC is going to win this one.
Yes.
So
yes.
we're definitely good there.
You're right there.
Yeah. So all you other conferences, what up? So, so that being said, thank you all, especially all of our commenters, for watching on our YouTube, Twitch, and on our Facebook, and listening over on our podcast. But if you're not listening to our podcast yet, come and join us over at 100 Yards of Football. You can pull up your Spotify app, your Apple Podcast, or anywhere that you listen to podcasts, and just type in 100 Yards of Football. Look for our football on the 50-yard line there. We are sponsored by the Believe Podcast Network, who are our amazing partners who have helped us so much to launch and to grow throughout this last year of our podcast. And now we're just cranking it. We have over 500 episodes. We have incredible interviews with legendary players. We have awesome game previews, recruiting classes. We have interviews with other sports broadcasters, and we have history specials where our host Vincent Turner, who started it all back on AM radio over 10 years ago here with 100 Yards, he will break down amazing history specials, including classic teams, classic players, amazing coaches, and just the eras of football. So I personally like to listen to those just over and over again because they're evergreen. You can listen to them anytime. So definitely check out the podcast in addition to all of our amazing live streams you can watch anytime that you want on your favorite platform. So for our entire team here, I am the producer, Jeremiah Long, and you've been listening to our breakdown of the national championship between Georgia and Alabama with our host, Logan Landers. We'll be right back with another live episode.